In this video, we're going to be discussing one of the weirdest SAT grammar topics. Erica Meltzer calls this topic faulty comparisons. Nelson Fu calls this topic illogical comparisons. I call it apples to apples. I'm Gert Severson, the inventor of the Severson method, a scientifically proven way to learn anything fast, including the weirdest grammar topics on the SAT. So if you guys are curious about this whole apples to apples concept, I'm so glad, because you're going to see at least one or maybe even two questions like that on the SAT. I haven't seen many of those on the ACT, but the SAT definitely loves to rob students of their points using the illogical comparisons or faulty comparisons or the apples to apples rule. Here's what it looks like. You are going to see a word like then, as, compared to, or relative to, similar, which will tip you off to think that what you're looking at is comparison. And there's going to be three different ways you're going to be approaching it or trying to solve it. So let's take a look at way number one. And the way I'm going to teach it to you is I'm going to give you a sentence and ask you if there's anything wrong with it. Mark is more annoyed by the noise than his sister. If you were to just hear the sentence, you would have absolutely no problem with it. You would know exactly what the sentence is communicating, that Mark is more annoyed than his sister. But in the spoken language, this sentence makes a lot of sense. In the written language, this sentence is wrong. And these questions, the illogical comparison questions, present a special challenge for those of my students who are really good with grammar, who have a really good ear for things, and they just try to approach the writing section by the way it sounds. It just sounds right. And they always get these wrong. Here's why. Because in the English grammar, in the written grammar, we have to compare things that are alike. We compare apples to apples. We compare things to things. Here, what are we comparing? We're comparing the way Mark is annoyed to the way his sister is annoyed. We're not comparing the way Mark is annoyed to his sister. That would be an illogical comparison. So how can we fix this sentence? We only need two letters. Mark is more annoyed by the noise than his sister is. We don't have to repeat annoyed by the noise. We can just say his sister is. Now I'm going to show you how the SAT is testing you on this concept. Take a look at this problem, pause the video, and come back to me. What did you guys think? What did you say? Did you say it was B, C, D, or maybe no change? Let's do it together. She found that students who were required to volunteer rushed to complete their service hours in early high school. All of that doesn't really matter. Now, after the comma, the important part. They then did significantly less regular volunteer work in the 12th grade then the THAN. When you're comparing, you use the THAN, not the THEN. Then, if we want to say, I'm better than she, you're going to say THAN. That was a side note. Then, the service hours of those not required to volunteer. Well, whenever you see then and you're spotting an illogical comparison, you don't really need to read the no change answer choice. What is more important is that you identify what are you comparing. And here, you're comparing what they did significantly less regular work than did students who were not required to volunteer. Believe it or not, the right answer is B. And here's why. Because that's the only one that mimics the setup of a previous sentence. This type of approach for illogical comparisons is very similar to the approach of a parallelism. You know, parallelism rules where you have a list and the way the structure is in the first two parts has to be the same in the third part. There's a lot of parallelism in SAT and ACT. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So here, you just have to make them look alike to avoid illogical comparisons. Next type of approach, illogical comparison, is going to be tested. Let's first take a look at the sentence. Does technology in robotics advance more rapidly than genetics? What are you comparing? You're comparing technology in robotics, which will be an apple, and genetics, which will be a table. Because genetics is drastically different from technology in robotics. If you were comparing robotics to genetics, no problem. So here, we are spotting an illogical comparison because we're not comparing things that are alike. Technology is not the same as genetics. Now, here's how the SAT is going to test you on this rule. Pause this video, try to do it by yourself. What distinguishes bottlenose dolphins from other marine animals We're comparing dolphins to other marine animals. We're not comparing dolphins to other marine animals' calls. This is very tricky because other marine mammals apostrophe calls. If you were to overlook this word calls, you would have been in danger. So make sure you read every word in your answer choices. But if you said D, you're absolutely correct. Now, the last way the SAT can test you on those illogical comparisons, let's check out this sentence. I prefer the landscapes of the desert to the Midwest. Do you see a problem here? What are we comparing? We're comparing the landscapes of the desert to the Midwest. The Midwest is the apple, and the landscapes of the desert are going to be a banana. Okay, we can't compare an apple and a banana. So we have to do something to the banana to make it look like more like apple. Here's what you'll do. You will be using a pronoun. I prefer the landscapes, which is a plural noun. Therefore, you're going to use a plural pronoun. I prefer the landscapes of the desert to those of the Midwest. If you're shocked, you're not alone. But this is exactly how you should be doing this. And just as a reminder, these are your pronouns. This is singular. That is singular. These is plural, and those is plural. What is the difference between this and that? If you haven't seen our video about subjects, I'll just give you a quick little refresher. This is to refer to something that is nearby. These is to refer to something plural that is nearby. That is you're going to refer to something that is beyond your arm's reach. And those, you're going to refer to something that is plural that is beyond your arm's reach. These books, those books. This book, that book. So far, so good? Let's try a real SAT problem. Pause this video. In my personal opinion, this problem is especially complicated because of how hard it is to locate what is actually being compared. Here, you are comparing the song complexity in the Bengalese finch to the song complexity of the white-rumped munia. So you are comparing the song complexity of one bird to relative to that of the white-rumped munia. This is the exact same principle. Relative to that, and that is going to map back to complexity, which is singular. Relative to that of white-rumped munia. It's not relative to, because then you're going to be comparing song complexity to a bird, to white-rumped munia. When compared with, it's the same thing as relative to, so one is not better than the other. And then when compared with those of. The problem with that answer choice is that you're comparing to those. Those maps back to something that is plural, and plural is maybe the finches. If you thought that you're comparing domesticated finches to white-rumped munia, but finches are so far above, and actually there's a comma and a fanboy, which shows to you that this is going to be an independent clause that will exist by itself. So this is an independent ecosystem right there. So you have to be looking for something that you're comparing in this part of the sentence only. Do you see how all of those grammar rules can come together and help you out? So here, the answer choice is A, no change. One last example. Pause, try to answer it. Johnson was ultimately correct in thinking that poems such as Fingal and Tamora are better understood as the work of an 18th century poet than as a 3rd century one. Do you see a problem with no change? I hope you do. Because we can compare the work of the 18th century poet to a 3rd century one. Is the pronoun one will always map to the very nearest singular noun, which is poet. So we can compare the work of an 18th century poet to a 3rd century poet, because we need to compare the work to the work. What's the solution? Work is a singular noun, 3rd person singular, so the pronoun is going to be that. So the answer choice is Fungal and Tempora are better understood as the work of the 18th century poet than that of 3rd century one. The answer choice is C. I hope this really helped you guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget, every month, if you leave a comment below this video, you get entered into a monthly draw. Every month on my Instagram, I ask one of my students who is currently present in my office to just randomly choose a person who left a comment in the month of November, December. Every month we choose somebody. And if you wanted to find out whether you won or not, lunch on over to the Instagram. We always post the winners there. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.